Do you know what keeps us up at night the most? It is not failure. It is the fact that we never find out if we could have won because we stopped halfway, because we did everything halfway. We live in an era of trying. Everyone says, I will try, but very few dare to say, I will see it through. I used to be one of them. That bitter feeling does not come from failure, but from never knowing what the final answer could have been, from not daring to step in, from not braving the storm to find the light on the other side. And then we start lying to ourselves. We call it, the conditions are not right yet, or just wait for a better time. But in truth, we are avoiding responsibility to ourselves. Avoiding the moment we have to look in the mirror and admit, I did not finish the journey. Let me tell you this. If you are standing in front of a door, hand trembling on the doorknob, too scared to turn it, then remember this. The pain of hesitation will always be greater than the pain of failure, because failure gives you the truth, but hesitation leaves behind a question that will haunt you for the rest of your life. So if you are going to do something, then do it all the way. No trying, no being vague. Do not dip half your foot in and then turn back. Jump in, sink if you must, but find the answer. I used to think that trying first was a safe approach. Take small steps, watch for reactions, weigh the risks. But the truth? That is the sweetest trap of procrastination and self-deception. Because you will never know what lies at the end of the road if you only walk halfway and turn back. You will never know where you belong if you just touch the door and never step inside. One of the most common tragedies I have seen is talented people living half-hearted lives, half passion, half effort, half commitment. And when the results do not come, they comfort themselves. I tried. But what does trying mean if you never gave it your all? What does trying mean if you never truly sacrificed something? They do not realize that the cost of not living fully is greater than any failure they fear. I remember a time when I faced an important decision in my career. On the left was a safe, stable, predictable path. On the right was a journey with no map, no commitments, no guarantees, except a promise to myself that I would give it everything. And I chose to step to the right. Not because I was sure of success, but because I could not live with myself if I never found out. I could not bear the thought of looking back one day and saying, I wish I had given it everything. You can live with failure. I truly believe that. But you will not find peace if you spend your life wrestling with the question, what if I had gone all in? That is what keeps you up at night. That is the kind of pain no amount of time can heal, because it does not come from the outside. It comes from the fact that you betrayed your own potential. The problem is not that you are not good enough. It is that you do not dare to be as good as you could be. You do not dare to leave the safety zone. You do not dare to step into the waters you have always dreamed of swimming in. I am not here to tell you to take reckless risks. I am here to remind you of one thing. Do not go in halfway and call it effort. When you step into something, step in with both feet. Go all in, be bold, lay every card on the table, and declare, I will find out. Whatever the outcome, I will know. Because only when you go all the way can you truly know what is meant for you and what is not. No one deserves to live a life where, in the end, they have to ask themselves, if I had gone all in, would my life have been different? And if you are standing in the middle of a decision right now, if you are thinking of just trying it out, then let me ask you, are you really trying, or are you hiding? Have you ever failed but still felt at peace because you gave it your all? Or are you still carrying the weight of what if every night? The painful truth is this. What keeps you up at night is not failure. It is the fact that you never found out if you could have won. There is no pain like living a life where you have to ask yourself, did I ever truly dare to live it all the way? Once you step beyond the line of half-heartedness, something important happens. You are forced to face yourself. No more fog of assumptions, no more excuses. In that moment, the truth shows up in its clearest form, and the first person you have to answer to is the one in the mirror. Looking into that face, you do not need to explain, and you cannot hide. You know exactly whether you gave it everything or not. And I will be honest, That moment can be brutal, but it is one of the kindest things you can ever do for yourself. I once had a silent trial. No lawyers, no prosecutors, just me and myself. I had just walked away from a big, ambitious project that had failed. No one blamed me. They said, "You did great." It was just the circumstances. But when I stood in front of the mirror, I knew I had backed down. I had taken the easier option at the last minute. I did not go all the way. And that is what left me restless. We often forgive our shortcomings by making excuses, blaming circumstances, or simply avoiding the truth. But think about this. Have you ever truly celebrated yourself when you did something well? Have you ever stood alone in a quiet room, looked yourself in the eye, and said, "I am proud of you"? Or do you only spend time criticizing, beating yourself up, repeating over and over, "I am not good enough"? We tend to treat others better than we treat ourselves. We are quicker to pat a friend on the back for trying than to look at ourselves with that same kindness. We are quicker to forgive others than to forgive ourselves. And that is the deep paradox I want you to face. Because if you do not learn to see the truth about yourself, both your strengths and your flaws, you will forever live behind a mask of what others expect, not as who you truly are. You need the courage to celebrate yourself when you succeed, and the honesty to admit when you fall short, to say, "This time I held back." But do not stop there. Keep going. Do better. Because you deserve to live as someone who does not hide, does not run, does not live in assumptions, but lives in truth. And I want you to do something right now. Look back at the last 3 things you did halfway and ask yourself honestly, did I truly give my best? If the answer is no, do not hide. Write it down and then fix it. But if the answer is yes, be grateful for yourself, because not everyone is brave enough to live with that level of honesty. I want to hear from you. When was the last time you looked into the mirror and said, "I am proud of myself"? Comment below, like if you have ever felt that moment, and subscribe if you want to keep walking this journey with me. How many times have you forgiven others but could not forgive yourself? You cannot live in truth if every morning you have to avoid the eyes of the one in the mirror. Do not just look for your flaws. Learn to stand in front of the mirror and whisper, "I am proud of you." There is one skill that, if you learn it, will change the way you live, the way you love, the way you work, and the way you face the darkest moments of your life. It is the ability to respond with intention instead of reacting on instinct. I did not fully understand the power of this at first, but once you experience it, you will never go back to who you used to be. Life is not always fair. There will be moments when people misunderstand you, betray you, speak harshly behind your back. There will be times when your efforts go unnoticed, your heart gets hurt, and you want to throw everything back with anger, defensiveness, or cold silence. And that is exactly the point where most of us lose ourselves, because we react, not from the core of who we are, but from wounds that have not yet healed. We do not choose, we just strike back. And each time we do that, we let our emotions pull us away from the better version of ourselves. Let me tell you this, there was a moment in my life when I reacted like that. Someone publicly insulted me, and I fired back immediately with sharp, precise, dominant words. But afterward, when the anger faded, I did not feel satisfied. I felt empty, because I had let someone else control my state of mind with just a sentence. I did not choose my response. I surrendered to my impulses. You cannot control what others will do, say, or think, but you can and you must control how you respond. And that is not weakness. That is power. That is the highest form of strength. It is when someone tries to provoke you, but you stay composed. It is when life knocks you down, but you do not let your mood fall with it. It is when you can pause for just 1 second, breathe, and choose to respond not from anger, not from ego, but from the values you want to live by. I believe that intentional response is what separates those who live with purpose from those who are constantly dragged by life. It does not come from instinct, it comes from training. From asking yourself every day, today, did I let emotions control me, or did I choose to control my emotions? Was I able to respond with clarity, or did I have to fight back just to protect myself? When you respond intentionally, you send a clear message. I am in charge of myself. And when you do that, you create an inner space that no one can invade. No one can throw you into chaos because you have chosen stillness as your ground. That is not avoiding conflict. It is leading conflict in a way that allows you to stay true to yourself. This world does not need more people who react impulsively. It needs more people who pause, who think, who respond with awareness, and you can be one of them. You do not need to raise your voice to prove your worth. You just need enough calm to hold on to yourself. That is the strength of a mature person, the strength of an intentional response. There is something strange about life that few people want to face. Major change does not begin with inspiration. It begins with habit. Inspiration helps you start, but habit is what keeps you in the race. And if you truly want to rebuild your life, after a failure, after a crisis, or after a season of feeling lost, you will not do it overnight. You will do it through hundreds of quiet mornings with no audience, through small choices no one sees, through steady decisions repeated day after day until even you are surprised by your own resilience. I have seen this in myself, in the people I love. No one gets through pain by sheer emotion. They get through it with discipline. When your heart is shattered, your mind is overwhelmed, and everything seems to fall apart, the first thing you need is a rhythm you can control. What time do you wake up? How do you care for your body? What do you say to yourself at the start of the day? These are not minor details. They are your personal rescue system during your darkest days. We often overlook the power of repeated actions. We think we need to think big to change. But I have learned this. What makes life less painful is not dramatic breakthroughs. It is the string of right actions maintained consistently. Working out when you do not feel like it. Eating well when your emotions are messy. Writing a few lines in your journal when your mind is foggy. Keeping promises to yourself even when no one is watching. Each of these small actions is a quiet declaration. I am still in control of me. And that creates a solid ground for real recovery. Habits are not just habits. They are the clearest reflection of your inner belief. You do not change your life with a motivational quote. You change it by living again and again as a stronger version of yourself, even in silence. When you train yourself in the habit of self-respect, the habit of keeping your word, the habit of caring for your body and mind, you are sending a message to yourself every day. I am worthy. I am responsible. I am rebuilding. And those habits, one day, will become your identity. Life does not promise happiness every day, but it can promise one thing. If you build the right habits, you will hurt less. You will have a solid foundation to stand on when everything collapses. And you will no longer feel lost, because your habits, even the smallest ones, will be the rope that keeps you connected to your purpose, to yourself, and to what truly matters. So if you are in the middle of a crisis, do not start with the question, how do I change my whole life? Start with a different one. What can I control today? And begin there. Repeat it. And rebuild yourself, one brick at a time. We live in a world that constantly demands you to figure out who you are. But rarely does anyone tell you this. Sometimes the path to finding yourself does not begin with discovery. It begins with removal. Removing what is not you. The things that no longer reflect your values, that no longer fit where you are going, or worse, things that were never you in the first place, but you wore them anyway just to be accepted. I once wore roles that did not belong to me. A job that sounded ideal, a relationship that looked perfect on social media, a lifestyle I thought meant success. And little by little, I felt myself disappearing. Not because I had no identity, but because I was living a version of life programmed by others' expectations. Every day, I worked hard to maintain something I did not truly believe in, and that effort slowly drained my soul. You cannot find yourself if you keep holding on to what does not reflect your inner truth. That is why I no longer ask, who am I? like I used to. I now start with a different question: who am I not? And the strange thing is, when you have the courage to remove what no longer fits, what is no longer necessary, what is no longer true to you, then what remains is your real self, finally starting to emerge. Do not fear letting go. Letting go is not abandoning yourself. It is an act of self-respect. When you remove false layers from your life, you are saying, I deserve to live truthfully, not just pleasingly. And the truth is, no one can tell you who you are if you are not brave enough to face what you no longer want to be. Letting go can start with small things, like the way you force your voice to sound interesting, or the life choices that go against your instincts. But eventually, you will have to face bigger questions. Which relationship is pulling you away from your core values? Which goal are you chasing only because of how it looks to others? Which job makes you skilled but not fulfilled? And when you let go of them, you are not weak. You are doing the most powerful thing. You are being honest. Maybe you do not yet know who you are, but you can absolutely know who you are no longer. Start there. Be gentle, but be firm. And when you let go of what is not you, you will not feel empty. You will feel lighter. You will breathe deeper, stand taller, speak what you believe without trembling, because you are beginning to live a life that needs no justification, no explanation, only alignment. And that is a kind of freedom no one can take from you. A kind of strength that needs no show, yet everyone feels it the moment you walk into a room. Not loud, but clear. Not perfect, but real. That is you. What remains after everything that was never yours has fallen away. If you ask me what is the deepest foundation for someone to live truthfully, make a real difference, and stay grounded in a noisy world, I would answer without hesitation: courage. Not knowledge, not talent, not connections, but courage. Because without courage, you will never dare to begin. Without courage, you will not let go of the familiar to step into the unknown. And without courage, you will live by a script someone else wrote, never writing the first chapter of your own life. I have met many talented people. They have good ideas, clear skills, and burning desire, but they do not act. They do not start. They do not speak. They do not move. Why? Because they are waiting for a sense of safety. And I have to say this clearly. If you wait until you feel safe before stepping forward, you will stay still your entire life. Because real safety never shows up before action. It only comes after you have stepped, after you have moved forward while trembling. Courage is not the absence of fear. It is choosing to act even when afraid. It is knowing exactly what makes you feel insecure and still choosing not to let that fear decide for you. And the truth is, life will always hand you opportunities disguised as fear. A partnership offer that makes you feel not ready. A difficult conversation you are afraid will hurt someone. A big change that makes you fear loss. But on the other side of that fear is always what you truly need to grow. I have had to face that many times. Leaving a stable job to step into uncertain territory. Admitting I was wrong in a relationship while pride screamed inside. Standing up to say something no one wanted to hear, but I knew it was right. And not once did I feel fully ready, but I chose to act. And what I gained was not perfection, but self-respect. The knowing that I had chosen courage, and that is something no one can take away. This world does not lack intelligence, but it lacks people who dare to live truthfully. People who dare to say no when others demand too much. Who dare to walk away when they realize they are betraying themselves. Who dare to start over when everyone is laughing. Who dare to cry, dare to fail, dare to quietly begin again without applause, without recognition. Courage is the root. Without it, you cannot love deeply, learn fully, or live honestly. And, more importantly, courage is something you can train. Every time you choose what is right, even when it is hard, every time you refuse to let fear drive your steering wheel, you are building a mental muscle, one that will carry you through seasons where no one else stands beside you. Success, happiness, truth, they all begin with one shaky but determined step. They begin with a heart willing to be hurt for what it believes is right. Do not wait for courage to show up. Begin first, and courage will follow. I used to think failure was the enemy, that it was the end, the undeniable proof that I was not good enough. But then I realized it is not failure that breaks us. It is how we think about failure that brings us down. Failure is not proof of your weakness. It is a hidden map pointing toward the path you have not yet fully seen. And if you are brave enough to look back, calm enough to learn from it, then failure becomes one of the most powerful elements of your growth. I have failed, not just once. I have missed out on opportunities I thought would never come again. I have said the wrong things, made the wrong choices, trusted the wrong people. And in those moments, I wanted to walk away from everything. I wanted to disappear, to stay silent, so no one could see the pain collapsing inside me. But then one day, I sat down and asked myself, what if failure is not the period, but the comma? A pause, a moment to reset your direction, to see yourself more clearly, and then to continue writing your story with more strength. Failure is a test of your loyalty to yourself. When you do not get what you hoped for, do you still believe in your inner worth? When the world shakes its head at you, do you still nod to yourself? When people turn away, can you stand still and ask, what can I learn from this? The truth is, you will fail many more times, and there is nothing wrong with that. What is worse than failure is refusing to learn from it, turning away, hiding, denying, and then repeating that same cycle until the trust you have in yourself runs dry. No one fears failure itself. What we fear is being judged after we fail. But real growth begins the moment you stop letting that fear drive you. I have seen people fall apart in front of me and come back as the most inspiring versions of themselves. Not because they never failed, but because they stood back up with a new spirit. They did not come from a perfect world. They came from the depths, where they saw their limits, touched shame, and kept walking with stronger steps. That is not something you learn from a book. That is something only real experience can teach. And if you are in failure right now, I do not need you to deny the pain, but I do need you not to stop. Learn, rewrite, go back to the draft of your life and revise it with all the humility and wisdom that only collapse can teach you. Because sometimes it is when you think you have lost everything that life is actually giving you the chance to rebuild everything the right way. Failure does not finish you, it reshapes you. And every time you get back up, you do not just become stronger, you become harder to deceive. No one can scare the one who has already walked through their own fear. There is a quiet power that many people overlook, not because it does not work, but because it is too simple to be taken seriously. Visualization. I am not talking about daydreaming or imagining for fun. I am talking about a deliberate act, one that holds real power to transform. It is the act of letting your mind see clearly who you want to become, to feel it, even when the world around you has yet to reflect it. Visualization is the language the future understands. And when you speak to your future clearly with your mind, it begins to speak back. I used to think visualization was for dreamers, until I started doing it every morning, not to escape the present, but to guide it. I closed my eyes and visualized a version of myself acting with integrity, keeping promises, doing the hard but right thing. I did not need to see immediate results. But what I did see was a subtle shift in how I made choices throughout that day. And I realized this: when you have a clear picture of where you are headed, you are less tempted by meaningless detours. Success is not accidental. People who achieve extraordinary things all have one thing in common. They saw it first before others believed. Before the evidence appeared, they had already seen it in their minds. So when you act based on a clear vision, you no longer need to wait for inspiration or motivation. You are led by clarity. And clarity, when strong enough, will carry you through even your worst days without losing yourself. There is one thing you need to remember. Visualization is not just about seeing something, it is about feeling it as real. If you visualize yourself standing on a stage, feel your heartbeat racing, feel the warmth in your hands gripping the mic, the eyes of the audience looking at you. The more specific, the more emotional, the more real. Because when emotion is involved, your brain cannot tell the difference between imagination and reality, and something powerful begins to happen. You start acting as if you already are that person. You cannot control every outside factor, but you can choose what fills your mind. And the more intentionally you choose that, the more you plant the right images, the right emotions, the more you are reprogramming the direction of your life. Do not let your mind become a dumping ground for doubt, fear, and the negative scripts society throws at you every day. Turn it into a garden where you plant the honest seeds of the identity you are building. This is not blind belief. This is a strategy for intentional living. You do not wait for reality to give you permission to dream. You use the dream to reshape reality. You visualize the life you want to live, and then you live toward it one step at a time. And one day, you open your eyes, look around, and realize that what was once a vision in your head is now fully present in your real life. Visualization will not do the work for you, but it will prepare you for it. It is the beginning of every right action, and it is the one thing you can do every single day that no one can stop you from doing. So close your eyes and begin to clearly see the person you are becoming. I have met far too many people who walk into a room looking radiant on the outside, but feel empty inside. They wear the right fashion, say the right things society celebrates, smile at the right times, succeed by every definition, yet they cannot sleep peacefully at night. Not because they have failed, but because they traded their true selves for acceptance. And no amount of approval, no matter how high, can make up for the feeling that they are living far from who they truly are. We live in a world that constantly pulls at you. Every time you open your phone, scroll through social media, hear a compliment, or notice a disapproving glance, you are tugged by an invisible string. Adjust yourself. Be more like them. Do what pleases others. And if you are not grounded from within, you will live a life directed by someone else. You will smile when they want you to smile, get angry when they mock you, feel insecure when they overlook you. You will be pulled by every word, every look, every wave of opinion, but you are not a puppet. You are yourself. There is something I learned early on, and I want to say it very clearly to you right now. You will never live truthfully if you do not know what is driving you. If you do not know, you get pulled. If you do know, you lead. If someone says something that shakes you, stop. Ask yourself, why am I reacting like this? Do I truly believe what they said? Or am I just afraid of losing approval? These questions are like flashlights shining into corners you have never dared to look at. And that is where real freedom begins. Freedom is not doing whatever you want. Freedom is knowing why you do what you do. It is when you walk outside in simple clothes but with full confidence, no need to impress. It is when you turn down a golden opportunity because it does not align with the values you live by. It is when you do not have to say much, but every word you speak comes from a place that is unmistakably you. I do not care what position you hold, how many people know your name, or how many accomplishments you have. I only care about one thing. Are you living in alignment with who you are? When the lights are off, when no one is clapping, when there is nothing left to prove, do you still feel that your life has meaning? If the answer is no, then everything you hold on the outside is only temporary. Living from within is not easy, but it is worth it, because you will no longer fear rejection if you have already chosen not to reject yourself. You will no longer chase attention if you know that your inner light cannot be put out. And you will no longer be controlled by praise or criticism because you are living by your inner compass, not the world's radar. Do not let others hold the strings and pull you. Be the one holding the wheel. Live a life you can take responsibility for. A life that, when you look back, you can say with clarity, I was not perfect, but I was real. I used to think that the goal of life was to have enough. Enough money to live, enough time to rest, enough love to not feel lonely. But after a long journey, I realized this. Enough is just the starting point. Real living begins when you rise above the limit of just enough and step into the space of overflow. Not overflow of possessions, but overflow of energy, of presence, of love, of capacity to give without running dry. That is when you enter the state of being whole. Wholeness does not come from the outside. It does not depend on how much is in your bank account, who stands beside you, or what achievements you have collected. It comes from tending to your life in a way that every part of you, spirit, body, emotions, values, is being nourished intentionally. That is when you do not just survive, you radiate. You walk into a room and leave behind peace, not because you try to impress, but because you are living from a place of inner fullness. I call it living with the saucer underneath. A full teacup can calm you, but when the tea overflows into the saucer, that is where others are blessed. When you live only to be enough, you are only enough for yourself. When you live from overflow, you begin to lift others. You listen more deeply. You forgive more quickly. You love without demanding. You give without counting. And you walk your path no longer to prove, but to contribute. To live this way, you need discipline. You need to build brick by brick your health, your relationships, your gratitude, your connection to what is sacred, and you need to understand this. It is not a luxury. It is a foundation. Because if you do not care for yourself to the point of fullness, you will always live in a state of taking from others, taking validation, taking affection, taking understanding, because something is missing within. But if you live from a place that is already filled, you do not need to seek. You carry it with you. Wholeness does not make you arrogant. It makes you humble. Because when you are full, you do not need to compete. When you are full, you no longer need to shout to be heard. When you are full, you can step back, let others step forward, and still never feel left behind. And the most important thing is this. Living in wholeness does not mean living without wounds. It means you have lived to the point where the wounds no longer control you. You have lived to the point where you can embrace your imperfections without letting them define your worth. You have lived to the point where every single day you still have something to give, even if it is just a kind glance, a heartfelt word, or your true presence beside someone you love. That is the destination of this journey. Not how much you have, but who you have become. Not what you have accumulated, but how you have lived. And when that day comes, you will not need to shout that you are happy. People will feel it in the way you move through life, quietly but firmly, because you are no longer chasing. You are living from overflow. If you have walked with me this far, then I believe one thing. Deep inside you, there is a calling, a desire to live more truthfully, more deeply, more fully. A part of you has stopped accepting a half-lived life, no longer wants to keep performing to please the world, and is ready to become the most authentic, courageous, and responsible version of yourself. I will not promise that this journey will be easy, but I can promise one thing. It will be worth it. Every time you choose to respond with awareness instead of anger, every time you keep a promise to yourself, every habit you rebuild, every time you stand back up after failure, every morning you visualize clearly the life you want to live. None of that is small. These are the bricks quietly rebuilding a life with depth, with purpose, with direction. You do not need to do something grand right now. Just start today by doing what feels right to you, even if it is small. And if you stay consistent day after day, you will look back and realize this. You've turned yourself into someone you can trust, someone brave enough to live honestly, humble enough to keep learning, and kind enough to love both yourself and those around you. Thank you for staying, for listening, and most importantly, for choosing not to give up on yourself. I wish you, from the deepest place in my heart, strength in every choice and peace in every breath. The road is long, but you are not alone. And the light you are searching for, it has always begun from within.